Hello and welcome to In Conversation with WLV Doctoral College. I'm Dr Deborah Curate and I'm the Research Development Manager at the University of Wolverhampton.
And I'm Dr Ben Halligan, I'm Director of the Doctoral College.
We're going to talk today about how to write an abstract for your thesis. Now it's easier said than done. Most people think, oh, this is really easy, it's just 300 words. What could go wrong? Quite a lot goes wrong, and it's often one of the things that often comes up as a correction at Viva. So we thought we'd talk about some of the tips around what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So for me, an abstract should be a standalone document. It should tell you absolutely everything that the reader needs to know about your work. So what you've done, why you've done it, how you've done it, what you found, and why that's important. So you need to answer those 5 questions for me in an abstract.
In the space of a few hundred words.
You only have about 300 words, don't you? So Ben, in terms of writing a succinct and well-structured abstract, what would you suggest?
There has to be a change of tense. In a thesis itself, it will say something like, this thesis will attempt to argue, or this thesis will begin a discussion around something like that. In an abstract, it's more in the past tense. This thesis engages, this thesis has engaged with the following theories in order to question, so it's a sense of not a live document, but a document that's been done. It needs to be terribly clear and succinct. And I think it needs to defer more to kind of headings and descriptions rather than nuance and details. So, for example, on the hardest thing, which is perhaps on the methodology, it would say something like, by taking a post-structuralist approach to this material, the thesis has managed to look at this and prove that, or whatever. Or in order to ascertain this level of compliance, 400 people were interviewed in this manner in order to, that kind of thing. So I think that it needs to be very clear to the readers in terms of kind of headline of what's in the thesis. It doesn't need to be an encapsulation of the argument, if that makes sense. Because what happens to the abstract? This abstract may well go to the examiners to invite them to consider being examiners. So they need that 300 words to just tell them what's going on. The abstract itself has a kind of weird afterlife beyond that. So once the thesis has been passed or awarded, the abstract will probably be kept on various databases so that other academics, other postgraduate researchers, for years to come may come across a reference to your thesis and very easily can find the abstract, which will then tell them whether they need to look further into your thesis or whether it's not relevant to them. So in fact, the abstract really is the writing on the tin. And I think, like a lot of writing on the tin, you just have to have the headlines, the main facts.
So an abstract is often the last thing that you write then?
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes where people go wrong. They try to write the abstract sort of halfway through. And that therefore they've only got half of the story at that particular point. And the abstract needs to tell the whole story, or hint at the whole story at least.
It's difficult because, to boil a huge thesis down to 300 words is really tough. And it's not unusual that even with a very good Viva experience and the examiners awarding you, they say, oh, and by the way, the abstract doesn't make any sense. Rewrite the abstract. So in terms of things you can have a last minute panic about, usually the abstract is, and then you find that, you can't actually explain what the methodology is or, in the space of 300 words. And so it raises a series of quite challenging questions for you to boil it down into such a short paragraph. So it can be tricky. It's the kind of thing that perhaps you should, I don't know, maybe do a line-by-line engagement with it with your supervisory team and see if they can okay it. Because the other thing is, I suppose, that if the abstract is not particularly comprehensible, it may deter a possibly a very good external examiner from choosing to examine your thesis.
Yeah.
So that could be quite damaging.
Couple of questions. What are your thoughts on the tense that you use? Do you write it in the present tense or the past tense, or do you write in a tense that's consistent with how you've written the thesis?
I would say in the past tense, but I wouldn't say that's a hard and fast rule.
Okay.
Because the abstract is, as you said, written after the thesis, so it
Yeah.
should be reflecting back on what's been done, unlike the present tense of the thesis itself.
I think sometimes there is a tension there because particularly some of my students do a form of research which is called autoethnography, and that's the personal experience. So to write in the third person or past tense would be at odds with the research methodology. And I've certainly some very eminent examiners in the field have questioned why an abstract is in the past tense and in the third person, but it's been written in that way to meet the constraints and the demands of doing an autoethnography for a doctoral thesis, which the two don't always fit well together. So I think sometimes there are exceptions to the rule where you just need to think about, well, is this consistent? Is this authentic? And whether there are, whether your work is one of those exceptions to the rule. The other question is about getting your abstract onto one page, because most people want to see an abstract on one page of the first page of the thesis. And students have asked me about, well, should I double line space it, or is this where I can actually just use single line spacing? So what are your thoughts about using single line space?
I wouldn't think that's a problem, unless you're at a university where that's explicitly forbidden for the abstract.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that would be an issue.
Okay.
I think, and that also makes me think that you can, it's one of the things you can look at other people's theses on electronic archives, see what abstracts they've done, see how they've, and sometimes people will, just put the names of various critics. By using Deleuze and Guattari, this thesis has argued that, something like that. And that also indicates, with that body of names, your particular position in terms of critical literature and where you're coming from as well.
Okay. So, in terms of the abstract, one top tip?
One top tip would be to make sure that you don't write it on your own half an hour before submission, but that you have a draft and you give it to your supervisors and you go through it with them.
Okay. My top tip would be, practice an elevator pitch. If you can talk about what your thesis is, what you've done in your thesis and why it's important in 30 seconds, it will help you structure how you write your whole thesis in 300 words. Okay, so thank you for listening. As always, do follow our channel, and then you'll get updates for whenever we release a new vlog. We release new vlogs every Friday, so watch out for further vlogs. And if you've got any suggestions for topics of vlogs, we'd love to hear from you. Do put them in the comments below, and we'll pick them up and hopefully be able to deliver something around that topic. So thank you for listening, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye.